Listening Library presents Onward, The Search for the Phoenix Gem, an In-Questigation by Steve Behling, read for you by Joniece Abbott-Pratt.
Chapter 1. It was bonkers. Absolutely bonkers. Those were the only words Sadalia could think of to describe what had happened that day at New Mushroomton High School. Sadalia Brushthorn was a sophomore, and she had a full course load. She was taking alchemy, realm history, and lots of other stuff that didn't really hold her interest. But then there was journalism. Journalism was her favorite. She had a nose for news. At least that's what her father said. He said she had the ears for it, too. Elves like us have a keen sense of hearing. That'll make you the best reporter to get the inside scoop. Sadalia's hearing seemed average to her. But one thing of which she was certainly certain, she liked to say that a lot, certainly certain, was that she would have a career as a reporter one day. Even when she had been no bigger than a gnome, she had always asked, who? What? Where? When? Why? And not necessarily in that order. In fact, she already was a reporter, and she considered herself to be a pretty darn good one, too. In addition to honing her writing skills in her journalism class, Sadalia was a reporter for the school newspaper, the Fortnightly Dragon. It was considered to be bi-weekly, which implied that the newspaper came out once every 2 weeks. But for reasons she didn't really understand, the paper came out 3 times a week. When Sadalia asked the journalism teacher, Mrs. Nightdale, why that was, she laughed and said, "Who knows? It's a mystery, wrapped in an enigma, then placed inside a conundrum and baked in an oven at 350 degrees for 35 minutes. We're certainly hot off the presses here at the Fortnightly Dragon." Sadalia had no idea what any of that meant. But she wasn't complaining. More newspaper issues meant more writing opportunities. No one in her journalism class had volunteered more often or pitched more ideas than Sadalia. She was constantly looking for a story that would be her big break, one that would prove to everyone that she had what it took to be an honest-to-goodness newspaper reporter. But most of the stuff that happened at school fell into one of 2 categories: boring, or really, really boring. Sadalia didn't want to waste her time writing stories about the latest happenings of the Friends of the Unicorn Club. Boring. Plus, everyone knew unicorns were the most disgusting things in the realm. Or interviewing the guy who fixed the drinking fountains. Really, really boring. It didn't help that not many exciting things went on in the quiet suburbs of New Mushroomton. But someone had to cover those things, to be sure, and it was usually her. She just wanted that one big story, the one that would change her life forever. Then one day, she got exactly what she wanted, and her life was never the same. It had started out as an ordinary weekend evening. Sadalia and her friends were hanging out, walking near the high school right before sunset. There was some commotion in the form of police activity near the old town fountain, which wasn't entirely unusual. But what came next was extremely unusual. Where everything had been normal, suddenly a swirl of red, smoky mist appeared in the air just above the ground. It flowed like ink through water, snaking around their feet and legs, heading right for the school. The mist began to gather, creating a sphere. Then tendrils formed, extending from the sphere almost like tentacles. The tentacles writhed and burst through the windows, doors, and even the walls of the school. Sadalia's friends' immediate reactions were to run and hide, but Sadalia's was different. She started to race forward, heading right for the school. She would have kept going, too, if one of her friends hadn't pulled her back. "What are you doing?" Althea screamed. "You'll be killed, or worse." Sadalia wasn't sure what was worse than being killed, but she didn't need her reporter's instincts to tell her that something huge was happening, and she had a front row seat. Althea yanked Sadalia behind a row of shrubs. While her friends ducked and kept their heads down, Sadalia peered through some branches to watch the action. That's when she saw the smoky tendrils grabbing bits and pieces of the school and the surrounding area. Everything from walls to desks to lockers to cars. The smoke seemed to be forming a kind of structure which Sadalia thought looked almost like a skeleton. The debris gathered all around this skeleton, and the school roared to literal life as a massive dragon. She didn't know whether to laugh or scream when she saw that the monster had the face of the goofy dragon mascot that had been painted on one of the walls of the school's gymnasium. She had no idea how it was happening or why it was happening. Nevertheless, it was unfolding right before her eyes. "Barley, run!" She heard the voice and recognized it as belonging to a kid from her class, Ian Lightfoot. He'd always seemed nice enough, but she didn't really know him all that well. In fact, her only interactions with him had been kind of strange. One time, she and her friends had been kicking a soccer ball around after school when it went flying toward Ian. Sadalia asked him to toss it back, but instead of doing that, he gently, and gently was an overstatement, rolled the ball toward her. It didn't even complete half the distance between them. Then he ran away. And just the other day, Ian had invited Sadalia and her friends to his birthday party. There was going to be cake at the party. Ian was very clear about that. But then, his older brother Barley showed up in this beat-up purple van, and suddenly, Ian was all kinds of embarrassed, maybe? Suddenly, there was no party. Ian said it was a huge misunderstanding, as if inviting people to your house for a party could be a misunderstanding. Sadalia had also noticed that Ian had pen ink on his face, and after she pointed it out, he seemed to get even more embarrassed. He ran off right after that. The whole thing was pretty awkward. But now, Ian was calling out to his brother as the massive dragon took off in their direction. The beast was charging at Barley, who was obviously no match for a dragon. He'd be crushed for sure. Sadalia saw that Barley had something in his hands, and it looked like the dragon wanted it. Barley raised his hand and hurled whatever he had been holding in the opposite direction. The dragon immediately lost interest in Barley and went chasing after the object. This thing moved surprisingly fast for something so big, Sadalia thought. In no time, the dragon had covered the distance between Barley and the thrown object. But when the dragon recovered whatever it was, it looked furious. With glaring eyes, the dragon turned to face Barley once more. It was easy to see that it didn't appreciate being tricked. The dragon decided the best way to express its displeasure was to breathe a mouthful of fire in Barley's direction. The flames scorched the ground, keeping Ian and Barley separated. Then, the dragon hesitated for a moment as wings sprouted from the sides of its body. They started to flap, lifting the dragon into the sky. It was heading closer and closer to Ian and Barley, and Sadalia wasn't sure if she should keep looking or not. But her reporter's instincts wouldn't allow her to turn away. Rather than run from danger, as most of the crowd was doing, Sadalia moved closer to it as she tried to get a better view. She thought she heard Althea shouting behind her, but her curiosity outweighed.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?